Welcome everyone to Witches Reclaiming the Round Table Global Online Summit, where the new wave of witches and sorcerers are returning home to our ancient source. In this summit, we're opening up sacred space for witches to take our seat once again beside the Knights of the Round Table, inviting witches back onto center stage where we belong to sing our sacred soul songs once again. This summit is a grand reclamation of the rising of the deep witch gnosis that is so vital now to support this continued creation of the golden age. And I am your host, Eimear Stassin, and I'm so delighted and honored to welcome today's guest expert speaker, Marguerite Rigoglioso. Hi, Marguerite.
Hi, Eimear. Nice to be here.
It's lovely to have you here. And Marguerite, PhD, is the foremost authority on the history of virgin birth and the authority of the bold new book, the author and the authority of the bold new book, The Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception, Mary and the Lineage of Virgin Births. Marguerite taught many graduate and undergraduate courses in the US and UK, and in 2012 founded her own Seven Sisters Mystery School, through which she's been teaching about the sacred feminine and mentoring clients on the evolutionary spiritual path. Marguerite is also the author of Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity and the Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece. Wowzers. And your title today, and what we'll be diving into, is Reclaiming the Magic of Queen Guinevere and Her Round Table. And I am so excited because this summit is all about gathering around the round table. So Guinevere and the Round Table, what is the relationship between the two?
Right. Yeah, I just feel so moved. I've been teaching about this for a while, but I just feel so moved by your putting it all together in your particular way and the energy with which you're coming. And there's just so much afoot right now with Guinevere and Arthur and Avalon and Camelot and all of these technologies that they were about and still are about. So, very briefly, there is an excellent scholar who's written a book called Red Tree, White Tree, and also Guinevere and the Round Table, I think it's called. I'm for some reason forgetting her name right now, but I know that it will come to me. But she's the one who really tuned me on to the fact that Guinevere is really, in some senses, the one who brings the Round Table to Avalon, although it's attributed to coming through Merlin and his line and as a gift to the various male kings and personages prior to Arthur, and then eventually Arthur ends up with it. It comes through Guinevere's father. Guinevere's father eventually lands up with it. And so it's Wendy Berg, that's who the scholar is. It's the scholar, Wendy Berg, who says that basically the Round Table is Guinevere's dowry that she brings with her into the marriage with King Arthur by virtue of the fact that the father gifts it to King Arthur, upon their being married, essentially. So there's also the fact that it is round, which is a feminine symbol. And what it symbolizes is unity and harmony inside and out. And those are traditionally understood to be feminine values, not exclusively, but it's definitely something that the sacred feminine and women are more adept at promoting in this current climate than men are. And it's part of their, ecosystem of being caretakers and things like that. So that's just a very short story about the connection between Guinevere and the Round Table.
Amazing. And I never knew that was her dowry, in effect.
That's what Berg uses that word. And I think it's a very powerful one.
Yeah, yeah. And when that's Guinevere's dowry, and this summit is all about reclaiming the Round Table. And before we started recording, I was sharing that you are the first person who I've heard speak about the Round Table as a technology.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do you want to go into that now at this stage in the conversation?
Sure. A while ago, a number of years ago, when I started learning the deeper stories of Guinevere and Arthur, by virtue of the fact that, I've written extensively about divine birth and divine birth priestesshoods. And when I looked into their stories, it was so clear that there was a lot about divine birth in these stories. Guinevere has a divine birth story herself. The conception of Arthur, the same thing, the conception of Merlin. And so as I began working with them on the astral plane over a number of years, in and out over several year period, I just began to receive intuitively the concept that the Round Table is something that comes in from our interdimensional allies, if you will. And because it's both, the way they describe it in these ancient stories in terms of when it's given to Arthur and the knights and so forth, is that it can be folded up and put in your pocket, or it can be expanded out large enough to accommodate upwards of 1,000 knights, 1,000 people, all sitting around, so that unlike a traditional table in the medieval times, there's no head of the table. Usually they were rectangular, and the heads of the table, sat at one end, denoting status and so forth. So as I began to work with that concept, I realized, wow, this is really some kind of, I call it Pleiadian technology, because what I know from my work research into the ancient star system and the ancestors known as the Pleiades, they are all about promoting unity consciousness on planet Earth. So this symbol of unity among people, where everyone is an equal participant when they are in council, is very much, a fifth dimensional and higher type of technology or concept. I call it a technology also because the idea that it can be folded or made small means that there's something else at work. There's an interdimensional factor. And that's pointing to something definitely, beyond the third dimension. I mean, there's just no way that a table that could accommodate 1,000 could be folded into somebody's bag. Even those large rafts that they're doing, they're big, it's going to be a backpack. It's not going to be in your pocket. What it means, so looking at that meaning helped me understand that something else was at work here. And that this was both an outer technology and an inner technology that may have to do with circular functioning or circular rotating, or, just that Platonic image of the circle as opposed to the square or the triangle or whatever. And that it, a circle typically can rotate, right? So I was looking at the concept of it as an inner technology. What does it mean to have inner unity? The unification of all of your parts, the unifications of your dark and your light, the unification of your higher self, lower self, as well as the unification of all of your inner parts, your inner children, right? There's a deep healing that's needing to go on where we are needing an inner unity. and then something that unites each of us personally with the divine. So when I start looking at these concepts around it, you can start imagining all these many ways that you can be using the round table imagery. And then I learned of an oracle named Lisa Renee, who on her website, Energetic Synthesis, has in her shifting timelines and in her, which is a monthly blog, audio blog, and in her Ascension glossary, the term round table, she says, refers to rainbow rounds. So this literally is a technology that has rainbow light as a part of it, and that it was used by Earth people and interdimensional people in interdimensional portals to clear them, to cleanse them of negative influences, of infiltrations. And there are many, many portals around the planet, and one or several important ones are in Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, and the ancillary small islands. And she says that it's a process that requires two men who are authentic knights, not co-opted knights of the Templars, and that later got co-opted, and that they go in and they run these rainbow round tables. They run these rainbow rounds to clear these portals. So I think that it can be used on multiple levels. And when I've taught my class, Reclaiming Guinevere and Arthur, heal yourself in our world by reclaiming Guinevere, Arthur, the Fae, and the Round Table, I had people use it inwardly as an inner circular action within their hearts, because the heart is needing to be unified with the mind, with the womb, with our actions. We're moving into a higher dimensional heart and love consciousness. So it's all related to creating harmony, cooperation, and the new restored Eden on planet Earth.
Wow. I have so many tingles. There's so much going on within me right now as you're sharing that. From the moment you speak of the round table being able to be folded and put in your pocket, and then the image of the 1,000 knights around the table, and it's just so versatile. And yeah,
it is an interdimensional technology that can be the smallest of the small and the largest of the large, just like the holographic nature of the universe itself. It can be encoded in an atom, or the entire universe. So it's like the round table is a similar thing. It's at every level of the hologram. It appears, and it's available at whatever size and whatever way you need it.
Yeah.
So we need and want to start working with this again.
Yes.
Whether it's to clear portals, or whether it's to clear the detritus of our hearts and unite ourselves and with the divine, and then with others, using a round table, envisioning ourselves around a round table before or during any sort of group action, or anything that we're trying to accomplish, a meeting of any kind.
Yes, I love that. And that's where the vision came to me. It was actually this time last year for the vision. It was the vision of the knights at the round table, but they were only halfway around the table because they're waiting for the witches. So it's divine union.
The 13 knights and the 13 ladies, and then multiply that, times however many, the priestesses and the priests, the priestess queens and the priest kings, however you want to call them, which is whatever, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting when you speak of it takes the two knights to run the round table.
Yeah. Wherever two or more are gathered, you have a powerful interaction, ceremony, ritual, or pulse that you're putting in to the universal realms. And so, so Lisa Renee is saying that it requires two or more authentic knights who are of the authentic Christ Sophia energy, not the ones who got run amok and started, killing people all over the place. Not the knights of Malta or whatever it is. Okay. But the real original knights of the UK and beyond.
Yeah. And as much as the energy of the divine feminine is rising, so too is theirs. Because, it's interesting, like my witch awakening, it's only been really 2 years in this process. And I feel like the witches, the knights, very similar things happen to them as well, the divine knights.
Yes.
It's almost been forgotten too.
Yeah, I mean, they've been hijacked, they've been distorted, they've been used. And then the authentic aspect has been subsumed under the topic of myth, fiction, right? So even though, you still have the knighting behavior in the UK, but it's a different thing. It's been taken over, So there's a lot here.
Yes. How long do we have?
Well, right. I mean, the course, I had something like 4 sessions that were an hour and a half each, and you could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
From there.
Yeah, I took your course. It was just so fabulous.
Oh, blessed be. Yes. Yeah. So you're there. Okay.
Yeah. And what about then, when you speak of Guinevere and also the divine birth, their connection to divine birth, would you like to share about divine birth in the era of Avalon?
That's right. Well, divine birth is a memory of, I believe, how humans used to reproduce when we were in the stage of the human body back in Lemuria and before, when we were not differentiated into masculine, feminine, but we were kind of like an androgyne or a hermaphrodite. And therefore, all birthing happened consciously and at will. So as in the period of time, whenever that was, when the sex is separated, which Plato talks about, and then seers like Rudolf Steiner talks about, it created a gap and a problem for humans. However, the ones who remained with the female womb had more of a capacity to naturally restore an androgyne state or a hermaphrodite state in order to have a conception and birth on their own. So this is what is encoded in the story of Mother Mary conceiving divinely, but it's in many, many other stories around the world. Mary's is not the only one. First of all, she was born of her mother Anne in the very same way. We have Isaac, who was born of the biblical Sarah. We have John the Baptist, who was born of Elizabeth. And then, many stories in Native American traditions, in Hindu traditions, all over. So this practice continued for human women. And as the veils became thicker, we were less and less able to access fifth dimensional and higher consciousness. Everything became denser. We were more and more into 3D. It became a harder and harder feat to accomplish. And there needed to be more and more practice by these women who were passing down this knowledge in lineages in order to do it properly. Then it also became influenced by Tantra, high Tantra, where the separated male and female do come together in sexual union. That is a different way of uniting to create that high level being. The purpose was always to bring a high level being. But what you have in natural human relating is that sometimes there's the consciousness there and sometimes there isn't the consciousness there to bring in a high level being. So we have all sorts of children coming in with all sorts of karma and issues and things like that. But these lineages stayed alive and well for thousands of years on the planet. And Guinevere, Arthur's mother, first of all, was the, Dark Ages version of the priestess of divine birth, who was in charge of the Castle of the Virgins. Why is that? You know, that shows us that she was functioning with these women. She was one of them. She knew how to do it. But the story that we hear about with Arthur is that she engaged in a tantric ritual with Uther Pendragon. So they were trying to do it that way. Guinevere, we have a different story where her mother is never named. She's some mysterious woman who shows up at her father's court, and her father ends up having sexual relations with her and her maid on the same night. That, what I've learned through my research on divine birth, is always telling us that a ritual is going on. Whenever it's two conceptions in one night, because both women conceived daughters that were identical. They were both named Guinevere. With Arthur, it was Igraine, the mother, thought that she was, quote unquote, thought that she was having sexual relations with her husband, but it was really Uther Pendragon who had achieved magical means to look like her husband so that this divine ritual could happen. All these types of stories in the ancient Greek myth and all over are always telling us that a magical ritual is being enacted by the people. We don't know at what level of frequency and quality this is, if this is kind of a hijacking, a manipulation. I think that already by the time of Arthur and Guinevere, the negative forces were already getting their claws into this high divine birth practicing, and they were distorting it. So you have a Guinevere who came to the planet under semi-contested and strange conditions, and in Arthur, the same thing. And then they, as the divine couple who have both dragon lineage, if you look back at their pedigrees, dragon lineage and fairy lineage. So these are actual, real interdimensional beings who cavorted with the earth plane in and out of different dimensions of reality, and were less and less seen as the veils got thicker and thicker. But this was like the last age where the veil was still somewhat parted. Although everything was still getting taken over, there was still legitimate divine birth still happening. But Guinevere and Arthur were then meant to be that sacred marriage couple to bring in another high being like Magdalene and Jesus. They are iterations of Magdalene and Jesus, but their divine birth was foiled at every turn. And I talk about that, looking at these stories. I talk about that in that class that I referenced. And so we know that that was like the closing of a certain door on planet Earth, and certainly in the British Isles. And what happened was the co-opting of the sacred birthing and the queens and so forth for breeding programs and different things like that. So it's a very large, important, and hair-raising story if you know how to look at it, which is what I believe I have provided in this work that I've been doing.
Amazing, amazing. It's so powerful what you're sharing. And then is there, when you speak of Avalon, you speak of the British Isles and Ireland as well. And do you have a particular sacred site or place which is of utmost importance now to remember and reclaim?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that anywhere where there have been built major cathedrals, or where there's been tampering of ancient sacred sites, those are important portals. So Canterbury Cathedral, Westminster Abbey, the Hill of Tara, and many other places all around the British Isles that, you know, you need only look at the lore or look at the signage or whatever, and you can figure it out. And Avalon is kind of like a name for the whole complex of the British Isles that goes back to Albion, which was also a name for Scotland, right? And so these are ancient names that were already there. It doesn't take a New Age channeler, to figure it out. So, and there are other people talking about major portals, Stonehenge, and but again, most of these places have been taken over. On the Hill of Tara, we have that inappropriately placed lingam, that phallus that is not supposed to be there. And they're saying that it is the stone of destiny. It is not. It is a raping tool for the entire Irish landmass, okay, on a hill that was a portal and belonged to the sovereignty goddesses. Tara and Maeve, and there's a whole list. My colleague Zoe Daly is talking a lot about this and uncovering a lot of information. She sells the Eru blankets, Eru, ERIU, the original name of Ireland, Eru, that goddess. Okay, underneath all these names are the original names of the goddess who was there. So it's up to people to really sniff it out. Intuitively where the portals are. Go there and start bringing, the Sacred Heart energy. Start bringing the people with love and clearing and, calling in the great masters of true love, light, and wisdom to help clear these spaces.
Yes. And I'm
all on the round table.
Yes.
We need some intrepid knights. And I say that because it's like, yes, women can do that work, but men also need to be restored to their rightful place as the protectors. They need to rise up in that again. And they need to be at these portal places, working in harmony with the women, but they can do the heavy lifting of it so that the women don't have to get their vulnerable wombs involved in this situation. We don't need to be the warriors anymore, Boudica notwithstanding, being that warrior in the British Isles. I mean, there were women who did and could do this, but it's like, we need to be encircled in the center and protected by the men. That's right matriarchy.
I can feel that. It's like,
and we're doing our magic from the center instead of fighting the battles on the periphery.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I can really feel that. It's like, we don't have to do it all anymore. Really?
No, don't have to do it all. And the only reason why we've been having to do it all is because there have been so many distortions that we needed the time on the earth when women rose again and knew that they could do it all if they needed to, and were doing it all in these domains so that they wouldn't be taken over by the men who will generally still under patriarchy take over any public space where women are, whether it's through talking, their own ideas, whatever, dominating. They don't realize it, but they're, they need to shed some stuff just like we all do. So when we start coming into right relationship and loving hierogamic love relationships again, it's going to be a different story again. The energies are going to right themselves so that the holy womb is not being used as the cleaning mechanism for planet Earth, which is what is doing right now.
Wow. Wow. And, I want to come back to that as well as when you spoke of the sites that have been tampered with, and I could just hear this voice. I have a very close connection with the Cailleach witch, who is the creator of the Celtic lands.
Ooh, wow.
And I could hear her. It was like, they've all been tampered with.
They've all been tampered with.
She probably swore as well, to be honest.
Yeah, of course she did. But she's the crone who doesn't give a shit anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah.
She doesn't give a flying fuck, and she can say whatever she wants.
Yes.
and loudly in a screeching voice. That's what it's come to. The feminine has been driven so insane that that's the only way that, we can be heard, is if we get loud, screechy, and, unappealing in some senses. But, brava to her. That's what she's meant to be doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And that knowing that we have so much support, and that this is the future, that we are all working together.
That's
no
right.
more separation. That's over. That's
right.
done.
That's right. And these beings are still working on the separation angle of it all, with everything that they're doing on the planet, making everybody get all up in arms about this and that, and fighting amongst ourselves about what's real, what isn't real, what really happened, what is really happening, what isn't happening. Wow.
Yeah.
Like the whole world needs to take mushrooms and wake up in the morning and, have a conversation then.
Yeah. There's so much drama available out there in the world.
Yeah, there really is. And just getting us literally up in arms and afraid now with, first it was the specter of a mass extermination plague. Now it's the specter of a mass nuclear plague. It's just one thing after another.
Yeah.
That's being orchestrated.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I listened to Lisa Renee's monthly Shifting Timelines blog, and the last 2 months, she's been saying everything is coming together for Guinevere to be restored to her throne and join Arthur again in sacred marriage. They being, again, an iteration of the Christ Magdalene. And so I'm like, wow, okay, somehow my intuitive timing, I didn't know any of this, but my intuitive timing has corresponded with exactly what she's saying. So we've got that class, our conversation, many people now are awakening to ever deeper levels of this Guinevere Arthur story and what the round table really is.
Yes. And would you like to speak more about the Eros gamos?
Yeah, this is our birthright because it unites what was torn asunder when the human form was separated out. And it's what we all seek, that sacred marriage, hieros gamos, as it's named in Greek. It's the beautiful coming together of the masculine and the feminine in love, in even sexuality. And it is the necessary coming together and balancing for the balancing of the earth. And it was one of the first things that was torn asunder, not after humans were ripped apart. Then they ripped apart the sacred marriage. They had these beings that keep doing this stuff. They distorted male-female relating and our ability to be in harmony and have sacred love, because they attacked our sexual organs and they filled it with all sorts of twisted things and, co-opted our orgasm and our pleasure and started, turning it into other things. And attacking men and women's ability to get along in harmony. So we've had thousands of years of warfare between the masculine and the feminine that is manifested in any number of ways, and anybody can look into their personal lives and see that it has operated. So we are restoring the sacred marriage as we are restoring our awareness of interdimensional life, as we are restoring our hearts and our sense of unity consciousness, as we are healing our body, mind, spirit, then we are able to come together with a healed feminine and a healed masculine can come together. And whatever still little, not quite healed can be transmuted in the process of that love of two understanding people. This is what, you know, everyone wants. And whether it's through female uniting, male uniting, or male-female uniting, it's because, interestingly, in Plato, it says that the original hermaphrodites, some were male-female, some were female-female, and some were male-male. All of them got split apart. So, but each one can come together in that sacred, loving marriage. And this is the energy that's going to heal the world. And when we restore our sexuality and release from it pictures of abuse and rape and, you know, other acts that perpetuate pain instead of pleasure, you know, all of that, we are restoring Eden on earth, because that's what it is meant to be. And then conception becomes conscious, whether we're doing divine birth or, you know, just interrelating male to female for a family. So it's signified by the coming together of the Christ Sophia, the Christ Magdalene, and the Arthur Guinevere.
Amazing. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
Very, very beautiful.
Yeah. And as this is all happening, it's more available for people to experience, because so many people have been having contested relationships, divorces, trauma, interdimensional and intergenerational sexual abuse, addictions, you know, all of this stuff has been circulating around all this misery. And now that these portals and paths are getting cleared, more people are going to be able to find their divine right partner and harmoniously coexist with them without breaking apart. And that's what most people are seeking.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. That's so beautiful. And how then can people watching, how can we connect with all of that, with the portal, the technology of the round table?
Yeah. Well, you know, on my end, right, they can go to sevensistersmysteryschool.com. The 7 is written out. And under my online courses, you can find the course about Guinevere and Arthur. And on that page where there's information, there's also a free video, 2 free videos. One you can just click on, the other one you can connect into, which is called Unveiling the Secrets of Guinevere and Arthur, where I talk more about Guinevere's literally magical origins and lineage, the distortion of her legend by patriarchy, which also involves the whole Lancelot debacle, Arthur's divine birth and Merlin's role in it, which you and I have not spoken about today, how the Faeries were related to all of this, and how they beckon us to reunite with them to heal today, and how these histories truly are powerful medicines for us, for the healing of our own lives, and then the strengthening of our own being, so we can go out and be those radiators of divine energy and healing for the rest of the world.
Yes. And I highly recommend your courses and your talks. I've learned so much, and it's so healing. It's so healing to know, you know, when all this stuff is coming up, all the distortions, all the crap, that this is it. It's clearing out so that the divinity can fully return.
That's right. We're at like a critical juncture now of pain, the pain body being expressed, and what people are calling trauma. People are becoming very aware of what trauma is and how many different levels it operates, and how there's nothing to be ashamed of, and how pervasive it is, but what we can do about it. Because the healing of that trauma and that shame that goes along with it is part of the great awakening of the human consciousness, and the healing of the planet, and the turning around of the ship of planet Earth from a direction of greater and greater peril into one of, you know, the Elysian fields, the Edenic realms, and so forth.
Yeah. Do you think this is possible in our lifetimes?
Yes, anything's possible, because the fix or the shift does not have to be necessarily linear, progressing from da, 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 da. If we think of it in linear terms, it's like, oh my God, it's going to be thousands of years.
Yeah.
But if we think of it as in terms of like quantum events that just go boom, boom, boom to awaken us, you know, like you were saying that you had an awakening 2 years ago. Well, what was going on 2 years ago, right? You were getting stimulated by the BS that was happening on the planet, put in the guise of a certain peril that we were being faced with, but there were many facets to what was actually happening. So those kinds of explosive events are awakeners. And not to mention that when a certain critical mass is reached, there's like, you know, that 100th monkey effect they talk about, where suddenly all the other monkeys are knowing what this little pod in the Galapagos Islands are doing or whatever. You know, so, and I think that that is really a true phenomenon, even though scientifically they try to be like, oh, you know, is that even real or isn't it real? It is real, you know, and we need to know that it's real and believe that it's real, because that's what's going to get us out of this stuff quickly.
Oh, yes. Yes. So gorgeous. I was going to ask, is there anything else you want to share? But I feel like you did mention the fairies, and I know you mentioned Merlin as well. I feel like the fairies want to be witnessed today in this conversation.
Yes, because see, the Arthur and Guinevere were a lineage of fairies, essentially, meaning these beings that have been having interactivity with the earth realm, and they are essentially ancestors to us as humans. They are sometimes called the shining one beings, or the she, who have been, you know, working in this domain for quite a while, interacting, living here, cavorting in higher dimensional realms. And then, you know, what I've learned is that then the humans descended from the she, right? But Arthur and Guinevere hold more of that earlier, pure she fairy energy, which has its expressions also in the natural world. You know, there are many races that express that Fae lineage, related to trees and nature and, you know, all sorts of earth forms and everything. So there are many different types of races. They have been in interactivity and union with humans for a while. They have united their DNA with ours. So many people have fairy DNA. And we once were able to interact with them much more easily, gain their wisdom, play with them, do the arts with them, dance with them. And again, as the veils became thicker and thicker through the action of these negative forces, they had to retreat more and more into the mountains, so to speak, into the earth, right? So we are awakening to their reality now. And those of us who are interested in this, are learning once again how to communicate with these beings for the benefit of all humanity and them, because being as connected, the poke through in our world of them is the natural world. And so when we destroy the natural world, we really affect them. So Arthur and Guinevere were like king, queen, fairy, dragon beings. And we're once again learning, what is that? What does that mean? And how do we work with that for the benefit of all and all races? Because we're all in this together.
Yes. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Because I know this conversation can go,
That's
there's
right.
so many strands and aspects to the work that you're doing.
You know, I would just encourage people to check into the resources that I mentioned, Wendy Berg, Lisa Renee. my website and the various links that you're providing here to consult, and consult your own intuition, consult your own heart. Are you thrilled by this? Is this opening something? Is it leading somewhere? Well, then follow your nose about that. Look more into the dragons, look more into the fairies, look more into Guinevere and Arthur, and find out what it means for you, how that's going to enhance your life, heal your life, shift your life, so that you can be a spirit worker who is on the path of reclamation of humanity and planet Earth for the forces of love, light, and wisdom.
Yes. Thank you so, so much. And as you say, I will have all the links below this video, and you can access Marguerite's free gift as well, which I highly encourage you to do. And thank you so, so much for being here and for sharing your wisdom with us all.
You're welcome, Eimear. It's a pleasure to be here, and many blessings to all of those watching and listening.
Yes, thank you so, so much. And to everyone watching and listening, we will see you again very soon. Bye for now.